Hi, I'm Ken Lammers, and this is going to be a semi-review of Jim Butcher's new book, uh, Cinder Spires, Aeronaut's Windless. It is really going to be kind of a comparison of Jim Butcher's book with the Honor Harrington series. And I'm here to tell you that I'm a big fan of Jim Butcher. He is a great writer. He is probably the best writer for character development or characters that I know. He's not in Weber's league and writing in political, sociological type situations, and it's yet to be seen whether he can do the military stuff as well as Weber does. In Aeronaut's Windless, he does some military stuff, but we're going to have to see how well that develops out. And I'm here to tell you, folks, the two people who I get the most advertisements about when I get on the internet are Jim Butcher and David Weber. Not directly, of course. The way that I get these advertisements is, if you like the Honor Harrington series, you will love, the exploration of space in, Gemini 549 or whatever, And I get the same thing with Jim Butcher's series, mainly, the Dresden Files. If you like the Dresden Files, well, then you'll love Bob the Unicorn Hunter. Go read all 17 new novels by author John Smith. Bob the Unicorn Hunter. And I get these all the time. And it's a different series every time, but they're always comparing to these two. And these are two big series by two pretty big authors with big followings. And to tell you the truth, as I read Cinder Spires or Aeronaut's Windless, I really liked the book. It's good. It suffers from some of the flaws that any first book in a series does. There's situations that you have to explain who people are. You have to spend some time doing that. And Jim Butcher does a pretty good job of that. He may have put a few too many people in this one right off the bat, but he is an accomplished enough author and skilled enough that it works pretty well. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5, not because there's really any flaws in it at this point, but because it's not developed far enough that I can say it's a 5 out of 5. That's probably going to be something that's reserved for 2 or 3 books in, once we're comfortable with all the characters and see where things are going. So, it's a good book. I recommend it to you all. And now, I'm going to go on about how the book is Jim Butcher's love letter to the David Weber's Honor Harrington series. And here we go. Okay, if you've read any of the Honorverse series, the massive books in the massive series by David Weber, you know that the primary character, at least for a large portion of that, is Honor Harrington. And Honor Harrington has Nimitz, also known, I think, as Laughs Brightly in the late books. But Nimitz, her tree cat. Okay, well, fine, that's there. What we've got is almost, I dare say, almost an exact same situation in Cinder Spires, where you have Bridget, Tagwin, and her cat, Raoul. Now, Raoul is a cat, but as we find out pretty quickly, Raoul is intelligent and speaks its own cat language, as well as being able to understand human language. If you know the Honor Harrington series, you know that Nimitz is intelligent. He speaks his own language, although it is more an empathic, telepathic thing than it is another language. And eventually, he comes to learn, as do all his people, into sign language so they can talk to the humans. So, and they're very tied to each other. Now, Raoul and Bridget Tagwin, while extremely loyal to each other, it isn't like they are like Nimitz and Harrington are, where they are kind of impressed. They're just stuck with each other. But they are the similarities are really kind of amazingly close. So that's the most obvious part of it. Now the thing you'll say is, well, if you've read Honor Harrington, you know that Bridget Tagwin is basically a kid from nowhere, kind of like Honor Harrington was when she starts. But when the Honor Harrington series starts, she's already climbed the ladders, and she is a captain in the very first book that was written by David Weber. Bridget Tagwin isn't anywhere near that. As a matter of fact, she's just joining the Spire Guard, or Spirearch's Guard, and so we're catching her early in. So we don't get that captain thing with Tagwin that we did with Harrington. However, if you watch this a little bit later on, we get Captain Grimm. Now, Captain Grimm is the one who is piloting the Predator, or the ship that's the mighty little ship that's outgunned and does it anyway. Finds a way to come through and win in the end, which is very much an Honor Harrington thing. And his demeanor when he's doing so is he stays calm. He keeps a plain face, so that he doesn't upset his crew. He looks confident, etc., etc. All the same stuff you get from Honor Harrington. So he is another analog to Honor Harrington. So they basically have split Honor Harrington into two characters here, but the really obvious character of Bridget Tagwin and Raoul, and then you get Captain Grimm as well. So it's there. Now, we also get another semi-analog. This isn't as strong or straightforward as the others, but we get an analog. Now, if you've read the Honor Harrington series enough, her best friend is Michelle Hinkie. And where did she meet Michelle Hinkie? She meets Michelle Hinkie back when they were back at the academy, when she was young and she was learning, and all sorts of things like that. And Michelle, in some points, Michelle is, of course, a very well-to-do, noble woman in her own right. She's not a regular citizen type like Honor Harrington is. She's a noble woman from a strong house. As a matter of fact, she is within certain degrees of becoming the monarch, the Queen of Manticore. Not such that it's going to happen tomorrow, but if something happened that 3 or 4 people died, she could become it. Now, the analog to this in Cinder Spires is Gwendolyn Lancaster. Now, Gwendolyn Lancaster, of course, is meeting Bridget Tagwin while they are just joining the Spirearch's Guard and in the beginning of their lives, and she is from a powerful family. She's not, as best I know so far, we know so far from the novel, she's not in line to become Spirearch if anything happens, but she's basically from the second most powerful family in her spire, the Spire of Albion. So she is a very powerful person. She meets with Bridget Tagwin, and she's trying to be helpful, but she causes harm fairly often. But she's headstrong, just like Michelle Hinkie is headstrong. They are not perfect analogs, but they're pretty close. And as you look at these characters, you really, really look and see, wow, this is what triggered to me this really is a lot like the Honorverse. Now, obviously, you know, it is a fantasy world as opposed to a science fiction world. You know, well, I should say space opera, fantasy and space opera, and you know, there are going to be many different things happen. But when I saw these, I went, well, let's see if there's anything else, and I kind of looked further in, and just a second, and I'll wipe this, and we'll start back with other things that are similar between the Honorverse of David Weber and Cinder Spires of Jim Butcher. Okay, so now we're starting with a clear slate. Let's start with certain things that are very similar in both of these. In the Honorverse, we have a situation for a good portion of this where there's a person who is protected by those above, both the nobility and the Navy, certain segments of the Navy, and this person is, if anybody who's read Honor Harrington stuff knows, is Pavel Young. Pavel Young is a nasty piece of work who is protected by both the nobility and certain segments of the Navy, and even after he gets his just desserts, there's still ramifications down the line from this guy. Now, in Cinder Spires, we really kind of have two. You've got, of course, Commodore Rook, who is currently of a high position, who something happened in the past which we've not had explained to us yet, and who is craven and who takes advantage of situations, and whom we are led not to like very much and to assume that he did something really nasty in the past. But we'll have to see. That's something that's going to develop in the future. But he is protected from above by the Navy, and maybe perhaps by some of the families in the Spire. We also have the potential of Reginald Astor being a protected person. He's in the Spire Guard. He's in there with our main characters as they come in, and he is a bad actor at the beginning. And that fizzles at a certain point for reasons I'm not going to explain right now, but it is a potential thing for the future to look for. So that is one similarity, situational similarity. Now let's look at another situational similarity. Okay, we have monarchs, and they are in both either stretching their powers or reaching beyond their theoretical powers, or pushing to get things done when nobody really expects them to do that. So you've got, and this is one kind of reverse. Most of the other ones I've been going, these two characters kind of fit this one character in the Honorverse. But in the Honorverse, we got Queen Elizabeth and Protector Benjamin. Queen Elizabeth being, of course, Manticore, or I guess Empress Elizabeth at a certain point, and Protector Benjamin, you know, being his world. And so they're out there pushing to make things better and to make the world a better place, but in the process, they are pushing their powers. Now, we only have one person on the other side, and that's the Spire. You know, a brand new term. The Spire Addison, and I am not going to put in his full name. They listed his full name as, let me see if I can find it real quick for y'all. His Majesty Addison Orson Magnus Jeremiah Albion, first citizen and Spire of Albion. He is pushing his powers beyond what they seem to be, or what they seem to be supposed to be, and he is sending people out to do things to fix problems that he doesn't think will be fixed otherwise, or to head off problems that wouldn't be headed off otherwise. So he's out there stretching his powers. And in his place, he's actually probably more similar to Protector Benjamin, because when we start out in the Honorverse, we first run into Protector Benjamin. On Grayson, he has lost, or a fair portion of his powers have been leached away and neglected, etc. Over the years, others have grabbed them, the keys, and so we see him pushing back to gain his powers again. That seems to be kind of what we're dealing with Spire Addison. His powers 200 years ago, when the initial Spire got everybody in the Spire in one, happy family. He had a lot of power, but apparently over the years it has gone away, and there's a council that rules things now. So he's quite a bit like Protector Benjamin. So the next thing we get is the harsh environment. Again, speaking of Grayson, right? And the similarities of the Spire to Protector Benjamin, we get the harsh environment of Grayson, which is a world we're told over and over again, while it's beautiful and it's got all these wonderful things in it, is trying to kill the human beings that live there constantly. They have to have filtered air. It's to the point on Grayson that when they get the ability to build satellites around their planet, they spend tons of money and putting clean dirt up there and growing cattle and crops in a place where it's free of the poisons that are on their own planet. And they have to carry gas masks and all sorts of stuff. And as you know, if you've read the Honor Harrington books, there's a certain point where they start building domes. Honor's integral in part in doing that. Okay, so what we get on the Cinder Spires is, of course, you've got the Spires, and I think there may have been a name for the planet, but I don't remember it off the top of my head. But what you have is a world which is full of things that are trying to kill human beings and are poisonous and deadly, etc., such that it's impossible to live outside of, or extremely difficult to live outside of these spires. These monstrous, I think 2 mile by 2 mile spires that have been built out of some super powerful, super sturdy rock, and everybody lives inside them, keeping out the critters and animals and everything that are out there in the world that will kill people. Now, of course, there are certain people who go from place to place in the Windlasses and stuff like that, flying through the air. And apparently, some people that go on the ground and get wood and silk and that sort of thing. But obviously, these are extremely dangerous situations to be in. So living inside the spire is the safest thing you can do. And so the world that's trying to kill you is a similar thing from both of these universes. Now let's move on to another thing that's similar. Okay, now let's talk about the enemies. The initial enemy, that is. The initial enemy, of course, in the Honorverse is the People's Republic of Haven. Not Havab. Haven. And the initial enemy in Cinder Spires is Aurora. Okay, so the similarities between these two, obviously they're very different in what they are. People's Republic of Haven is a group of, starting with Haven, a group of planets that all belong to what basically calls itself the Republic, is basically an oligarchical empire. Aurora, on the other hand, is another spire, and it is apparently all ruled in one part, but it's not well ruled, and that's something we get out of this. Okay, both of them have poor. Well, how do I get spelled? Governance, right? Both of them, they have poor governance, and the poor governance that they have is such that eventually, after a certain point, they have to go to war with somebody else because their economic, political, population situation is not working, and the only thing that they can do is go to war. Otherwise, they're going to fall apart on their own. Number 2, they swallowed up other polities. We are told, well, we know that Haven's done this. The People's Republic of Haven has gone out and grabbed all sorts of planets, right? And has been doing it for a long time. And it is the big enemy coming in the Honorverse. In Cinder Spires, Aurora, we're told, has gone out to conquer other people's outposts, etc., and has conquered spires, complete spires, or at least attacked complete spires. So, it's doing the same sort of thing. I don't now. Cinder Spires doesn't say that they have. Cinder Spires doesn't say that Aurora has kept those other spires under its control. That would be an interesting thing if it has done so. It could make them a much more interesting enemy in the end for Albion, the Spire of Albion. But we don't know that yet. It's not been developed. So the third thing we've got is skirmishing. And we start out, both of them, there's skirmishing going on. As a matter of fact, the first couple of books, three books of the Honorverse are about the skirmishes, the pre-war skirmishes. They're not actually about the war. In Aurora, we start out with a pre-war skirmish, but by the end of the book, we're no longer just in pre-war skirmishing. It moves forward a lot faster. Fourth thing we've got is a sneak attack. The People's Republic, the Peeps, as they are known, attack Manticore and its allies by sneak attack at least once, maybe 2, 3, 4 times. I don't know, but when the war actually starts, it's a sneak attack. Of course, when Aurora attacks Albion, it is a sneak attack, and they're not incredibly similar. The sneak attack in the Honorverse is not successful, although skin of its teeth, a couple places. In Aurora, the sneak attack on Albion is very successful, despite some of the stuff we end up going through with the novel. The initial attack is just very successful. And in number 5, things between the two of them is that this is more of a military than it is a political thing or anything, but in both of them they lose the climactic battle. This happens in both. It happens over and over and over again in the Honorverse. Generally Haven would do something, or one of Haven's allies or Haven's cat's paws would do something, and the Manticorans, or Manticorans, depending on how you want to pronounce it, but the Manticorans, generally Honor Harrington and her crowd, would do something to fix it and stop it. But, and of course, if you've read the Cinder Spires, you know that there is a climactic battle at the end. It's kind of an, anticlimactic battle. The Albions have gotten stomped on pretty hard by this point, but there is a battle at the end which they win, which is significant in its way. So, next we want to move on to an interesting thing we've got going on is the actual enemy. In Cinder Spires, this is not developed too far. We get enemy. That's all we're told. We have really like one interaction between Folly and the enemy. That's it. That's the only interaction we have. But it is very clear that the enemy, Aurora, is being driven by the actual enemy, the upper enemy, or the behind-the-scenes enemy, who is just enemy right now. And we don't know what that is at this point. Is it an alien intelligence? Is it the magic itself somehow? Is it fairies? Is it what? We don't know. So, the enemy in Cinder Spires is out there. Now, the enemy in the Honorverse, while it took a long time to get there, has been developed out. And we know what the enemy in the background is in the Honorverse. It's the Mason alignment. The Mason alignment is the one that made Haven go bad. The Mason alignment is what tried to run Manticore down. The Mason alignment is what caused the problems between the Solarian Empire. All sorts of problems in the Solarian Empire. The Mason alignment is basically what's got the Solarian Empire at war with the Manticoran Empire. So I should Solarian Republic or whatever you want to call it, at war with the Manticoran Empire. So we know the Mason alignment's out there in the universe. It hasn't been developed as what will happen to it, and anything, but it's very clearly become the enemy behind all the enemies. And so you've got that background enemy. And it does make things more interesting when you've got something along these lines. But we'll see how that develops in Cinder Spires. Now, we've got all these things that are similar, of course. And like I said, it reads like a lot of this is kind of a love letter from Jim Butcher to David Weber's Honorverse, right? And I know, as well as anybody who's followed the 9 million videos that are up about Jim Butcher out there, that he knows David Weber, he's read David Weber. It's really kind of a shame, because I've heard him comment about David Weber and look out to the crowd. He said at one point how he wanted to write a story about Marines in the Honorverse. And so he's writing a story about Marines in the Cinder Spires universe. But he wanted to write that story about Marines. I don't know if this is a story he wanted to write, and he just converted it over. But, the readers that he has, the fantasy readers, don't read Honor Harrington. And I know there are some people like me who are crossovers, but in general, they are separate groups. You don't see the people that go out to the Honor Con or Honor Cons, the people that are out there having cons just because of the Honorverse and Honor Harrington. Those are not the people you're seeing at the book, at the book signings that Jim Butcher's doing out for the Cinder Spires or any of his other books. It's kind of a shame, because I think they're both really good authors. This is not just something that's a Jim Butcher thing. I watched Brandon Sanderson's one of Brandon Sanderson's writing classes. Brandon Sanderson says, "Okay, who here has read Jim Weber or read David Weber?" And nobody raised their hand. It was a shock to me, because he's just such a big force in writing. But I think most of these people have grown up not reading anything to do with science fiction. Anyway, having said all that, and having said, oh wait, I did miss one thing that I had talked about previously. Had missed previously. Duels. There are duels both in the Honorverse and in Cinder Spires universe, and the in the Honorverse, anybody who's read them knows that the duels are a big, big, big plot point at a certain point in the Honorverse, in the series of books. I mean, big. And Cinder Spires, the duel looked like it was going to be a major plot point, but it fizzled for reasons that you'll know if you read the book. And I'm not sure if we'll ever see anything of that again. But the interesting thing about it is that the characters that are Honor's the person who tortured Honor when she was in her early ages in the military. Pavel Young was the person she ends up in a duel with, and at least one of the people she ends up in a duel with. And in Cinder Spires, the person who Bridget Taglin is being tortured by, Reginald Astor, is the person she's going to end up in a duel with as a young person who's going through her training. Very similar, different results, obviously, but they seem to be something of another similar point that came through. Now, let me say that there are differences, right? Very clear differences here. Obvious, beside the obvious, right? I mean, Cinder Spires is a fantasy world. The Honorverse is a science fiction / space opera world, right? But besides that, you get some differences. What I think are going to be big differences, especially as things develop. Okay, look. David Weber is writing politics. This is not something that Jim Butcher does. He's writing about the politics of, both Haven and the Manticore and the Solarian League. That's it, Solarian League. The Solarian League. He's writing a lot about interstellar and intrasystem politics. And he also writes as part of the intrasystem politics, he does also write about the politics in the military, which there always will be and always has been. But he writes about the politics in the military. This is his strength. Now, he does a really good job of writing combat out and laying out how it's done between ships. And when he does it, which is pretty much every single book, there's some sort of combat. But what makes his books really work is he goes through all this stuff where there's all the political kind of intrigue, infighting, etc. going on, and it works pretty well. I don't see that from Jim Butcher. I've never seen Jim Butcher write anything that came across really kind of political along those lines, unless you call stuff that went on in the White Council political. Which it is to an extent, but he's not really, that's not his focus. Jim Butcher is about the personalities, about the persons. That's what his strength is, and this is where he writes, right? He writes about the relationships, the growth of the people, the interactions, and their reactions to situations. So, this is what you get from Jim Butcher. He's writing about people. And he does a really good job at this. So these are their strengths, the strengths of both authors. And I think this lends them to very different types of books, even if they start out with really incredibly similar ideas, different universes, but incredibly similar ideas, you're going to end up with very different type of books. Now, I also think that one of the things you're going to run into that's going to make the difference is what they write about the people. Okay, the Honorverse, David Weber's books are really about one strong personality making the difference. I know that a lot of these books have more than one person in them that he's written. I'm not talking about the books where other people have gotten in and muddled things a little bit. And I haven't even read his YA stuff because I think he's kind of gone way off the board with some of the Tree Cat stuff. But his really strong stuff is Honor Harrington, the growth of Honor Harrington. Yes, you see the interactions around her of other people, but in the end, it's Honor Harrington making the difference. She's the one that does it. She's the linchpin. She's the driving force. She is the woman. You see that in some of his other writings too. Sometimes it's Michelle Henke. Sometimes it's other captains, but it's the one strong personality who is the linchpin of everything and drives everything forward. What you're going to get with Jim Butcher is many strong personalities driving things forward. And I can already hear it. But Ken, you know as well as I do that his most famous series is the Dresden Files about Harry Dresden. No, it's not really. It's the Dresden Files, and Harry Dresden's there, and he's something of a linchpin, but how often is Harry being rescued by his cast of characters and background guys? All the time, right? It is a crew. It may be told first person by Harry Dresden, but it's a crew. It's a bunch of really strong personalities. His brother, his, the cops, his, everything else. So, including his dog even, it's all strong personalities, and they are all moving him in a direction. Yes, he makes certain decisions, he goes certain ways, but he's being acted upon, and all of these people are coming forward and moving him in a direction. He may be the leader of the pack, but the pack's right there around him all the time. And while he is something of the linchpin, he's being made that linchpin by others, either through their expectations or through their prodding or whatever. And the story in Jim Butcher's books are the interactions of these personalities and the interaction of these strong people and how they move things forward. Now, and this is where I think you're going to see, while we start out with very similar ideas, ships fighting each other, and sneak attack and all this other stuff, and Tree Cat versus Intelligent Cat, both of whom come from cat clans. Yeah, figure that. But that's all very similar at the beginning. But I think what you'll see is Cinder Spires is going to move in a different direction because of the way Jim Butcher writes things. He will definitely move into a different direction because there won't be the single strong personality. It's going to be as it was in Aeronaut's Windless, rotating through strong personalities, doing different things, making things happen, and I think it's going to be really good. Um, but I just think it started out looking very strongly at the Honorverse. Well, that's it for this review, folks. I hope you enjoy the book. Actually, I do recommend it pretty strongly. Uh, if there's any flaw in it, it's that there's too many characters introduced too quickly. However, I expect that will grow. Butcher's able to handle that. He's written long enough and well enough that that's not a huge problem for him. I think that he'll grow all of these characters as you go through the system, or as you go through the series. And he has stated that he expects it to be 9 books. However, he's gotten possible cutouts written at, I think it was 3 and 6. If the book series isn't doing as well as he thinks it will. So we'll see how long it lasts. If it goes well enough, I wouldn't mind seeing 9 books out of this. And however, the next book I expect we're going to see from him is going to be another Dresden Files, and I do definitely look forward to that. In any event, folks, 4 out of 5, and I do recommend that you go and read, more of Jim Butcher's books. As well, I do recommend that you go and you read some of David Weber's books, and enjoy them all. They're all good reading. Have a good day, and maybe I'll do this again next time Jim puts out a book.